Hmm, that's interesting. I think I'm convinced. It's a buy. Oh, hi. You caught me making an investment decision. How did I do it? How did I come to a buy decision? It's not difficult. Let me show you. I have a crystal ball that helps me to do that. Let's see. Ooh, oh, it says buy. Just kidding. That's not how we do it. You don't need a crystal ball. On this episode, we're gonna talk about how to make a long-term investment decision using 4 primary questions. Let's get to it. Most people think the most important and the most difficult part of making investment decision is getting to the buy decision. Why people think that way? It's because there are literally thousands of information about every publicly traded company out there. It gets too much too fast. But in reality, just because all that information is available to you, you don't need to use all of them to make an investment decision. Let's take an example. If you want to go out for a restaurant, dining with your friends, what are you looking for? There are literally thousands of pieces of information about that restaurant. You go on Yelp, there are hundreds of reviews, there's so many information. You don't look at everything. You probably look at the quality of food, you look at the star rating. Maybe if you're looking for a little bit of fancier experience, you look at the chef reputation and whether he has won some awards, things like that. And at the end, you maybe look at some pictures of the inside and outside the restaurant. You're looking for the type of experience that you're looking for in that restaurant. And that's it. You make a decision and you pick up a restaurant and go for it. Same goes for investing. Thousands of information out there, but you don't need all of them to make a long-term investment decisions. Long-term investors are looking for data and information that help them to gauge and identify the future growth potential of that company. It's known as fundamental analysis. You're looking to answer whether the company fundamentally is well operated and is operating in a growing market, and that will help you to make a long-term investment decision. So that's what you need to pay attention to. On this video, we're going to talk about 4 key questions you need to get answer to in order to make an investment decision. Question number 1, whether the market or the subsegment of the market that the company is operating in is growing rapidly or not. Let's take a couple of examples. Amazon. Amazon operates in the online retail subsegment of the retail industry. Or PayPal. PayPal operates in the digital and mobile payment subsegment of the overall financial sector. So what you need to know is whether the online retail or digital and mobile payment subsegments of the market are growing faster than the overall economy or not. Why that matters? Because if the market that the company is operating in is rapidly growing, it puts the wind behind the back of the company. Regardless of what that company does, just the fact that the market is growing and there is more and more demand in that market, the company is gonna grow regardless of whether it operates well or not. So make sure to answer this question for any investment decisions. Is the company operating in a market or a subsegment of the market that is growing faster than the overall economy? That's question number 1. Number 2, whether the company you're investing in is well operated and well managed. To understand this point, let's take an example. Let's say you were looking at the future potential of a few high schoolers. All these kids go to the same school and live in the same environment, but a few of them are hardworking and put a lot more time into their studies. If you compare this group of students, the ones that are putting more time and are hardworking have a higher likelihood to succeed in the future. Same goes for investments. What you're doing is you're trying to find the indicators that help you identify whether the company is putting the effort required in order to grow and become a much bigger company in the future. So all you need to know is look for those indicators that identify whether the company is well managed and well operated. There are a few indicators out there. There's not too many of them. There's 5 actually. Number 1, whether the company has a stable and experienced management team. Number 2, whether the company has growing sales and revenues. Number 3, whether the company is profitable. Number 4, whether the company has the cash and limited amount of debt so that they can use that cash to fund their future growth plans. And last but not least, number 5 is whether the company has the competitive advantage in the market to be able to win over its competitors. If you put all these 5 together and one company meets all these requirements, chances are that company is going to be very successful in the future. One thing to notice though, you don't necessarily want to invest only in companies that have all those 5 criteria met. Sometimes you may decide to invest in a company that doesn't meet all those 5, but at least you are clear with the amount of risk you're taking. The least number of these indicators the company has, the higher risk you're taking because you're not 100% clear whether the company is putting the efforts required to grow into the future. But again, keep it simple. Just a few indicators will help you identify whether the company is well managed and well operated. Number 3, whether the company has a history of growth in its past 3 to 5 years. Why we look at that? Let's take a basketball player. If you have a basketball player that keeps scoring, keeps shooting for those 3-pointers, chances are this basketball player is going to continue to do so in the future games. There might be 1 or 2 games that this basketball player doesn't play as well as his past, but over the course of the games in the season, he or she is most likely going to be the highest scorer and the one that continues to score those 3-pointers. Same goes for companies. You would want to look for companies that have a consistent growth history. Although they may be a quarter or 2 quarters or few months that they do not perform as well as before, but if you have the indicators that this company has been able to grow consistently in the past, chances are if nothing changes in the operations of the company is going to continue to grow and with it grow your investments. So the third question is to make sure you're picking up companies that have a consistent history of growth in the past. Number 4, whether the stock price of the company you're investing is cheap or expensive. This is a little bit of a hard one to wrap your head around because if the company is successful, if it's in growing market, it's well managed and have a consistent growth history in the past, chances are you're not going to be able to invest in that company on the cheap. So that's why it's very important when you're making an investment decision, monitor your investments in your watch list. Monitor the companies that you're interested in your watch list, and when you get a chance to pick up that company at a lower price, take your chance. That's your lucky day. You have to go for it. So this one is a little bit more difficult to track, monitor, and measure. We're gonna have full episodes in the future seasons to talk about this, but for now let me share a few indicators. There are indicators such as price to earnings ratio or price to sales ratio, which is basically taking the price of a company and see for each dollar of the price what is the sales or what is the earnings that that company is generating. You can take those ratios for that company and compare that with the average of the market, and if it's lower, if the ratio is lower, you have a cheap stock at your hand. So don't worry about it. This is something that we're going to put a lot more time into it in the future episode. For now, make sure if you get a good company at a lower price, it's a chance to pick up a well-managed company on the cheap. That's it. 4 questions to get answered in order to make a buy or investment decision. No crystal ball needed. One thing I wanted to encourage you to do is maybe rewatch this video, maybe take a little bit of time in practice a few of your favorite companies and try to answer these questions for those companies. I want you to feel very comfortable about these 4 questions, because if you learn them and if you get familiarized with them, this will be the foundation of your plan for your long-term investment journey. I also want to encourage you to ask any questions you have in the comment section. I'll put a few hours aside to go through all your comments and all your questions and get them answered one by one, because this is one of the most important parts of your plan to become a long-term investor. So get started, do a little practice, and I'll see you next week.